Some teams are more equal than others when it comes to forecasting fortunes for a fresh season. Par operates on a sliding scale. In the cellar, there's still triumphs to be had, and the ambition to jump isn't to be underestimated. Such matters flavour the second sitting at the Fox Footy Round Table, where the season preview is very much underway.
Step into the office, because that works against 16 others. Try leaving Cyril by himself.
I actually think he could play wild card. He could nearly be another Jared Roughhead. He could nearly roam around, back when the game needs him to be back, and play a little bit on ball.
Your Honour, could you direct the witness to answer the question?
They're good for your soul, because they teach you about your emotions.
Still got to spend enough time inside forward 50. I don't think a Vicar is capable of kicking a 60-plus goals, which you want Rewell to kick. So he needs to get in there, spend the time there.
I trust the judgment of Mark Rasciuto. Mark Rasciuto has picked a couple of very good coaches, and I think he may be onto another very good coach.
I think that he's a player that takes away 3 or 4 wins a season. He's that impactful.
The revelation of last night came as a shock to every footy kid of the 80s, is that Dermot Brereton has a soul. Terrifying. Jared Healy, Dermot Brereton, Jonathan Brown, David King, welcome again to the round table.
Working on that soul too. It's good for the soul.
Once you've had a little look at the feedback, hashtag Fox Footy, any buyer's remorse out of night one?
Silence is deadly.
All right. Stick with what you believe, at least until they start. We're going to look to the lower reaches of the ladder. So the cautionary tale here is, David, of last year. If you say a team will win no games, it is likely to rebound on you. So with caution, we go on. 5 teams tonight: St Kilda, the Giants, Carlton, Brisbane. But we start with a team that created so much excitement last year, the Western Bulldogs. They were the feel-good factor of the season for sure. Can you lead us off with the accounting, the long-term trend, the list strength, the draw difficulty, and the key personnel changes?
You can look at their last 5 years in terms of wins and losses, but really it's the first year of new coach Luke Beveridge. 14 wins. It was a big improvement. They had a good foundation in contested football, and they're able to turn that with some good ball movement into wins. Their list is rated 10th. Which is a little bit low considering some of the staff factor on that list, and their draw is rated 12th. So there's real opportunity for them to get up and running. The ins and outs in the off-season: Suckling in, he fits their mould perfectly, have been a kicker, anywhere from half forward to half back, and they really haven't lost a lot, all by choice. So they've got a couple of ageing stars in Murphy and Boyd, and those guys are 33 years of age, but they haven't quite tipped over just yet.
The ranking of their list at 10, I think, belies the fact that we've got a lot of talent that has been yet to be put on public display, and even their performance 2 weeks ago against Melbourne. Melbourne had a very strong side in, and yet it was basically the Bulldogs' second side. They made 16 changes, pushed them to the limit. They've got a fantastic list. I think they've done as well as any club in recruiting over the last few years, and they are poised to, I think, have a fantastic era.
They've still got some choices though. They have, it's almost up around the 20 mark, players who've played less than 20 games, and they debuted 8 players last year. So Luke Beveridge got to the club and says, what have I got? I don't really know. I need to see some of these kids. You know, the boys like Webb comes in for half a dozen games, and then he's been exposed, has a look at him, he goes out, he's still in his future plans. But those types of boys, he doesn't really know what he's got at his disposal, purely right down to a man. So he's still got some discovery to make about this list.
So if we break that up a bit, Brownie, can the Bulldogs veterans maintain what they did last year, and how central is that to being able to propel further?
I'm not sure they can. You know, they had career years, Morris, Murphy and Boyd. They were fantastic. You know, 33, 34, obviously father time catching up. Not sure they can come back and have that same season.
Easton Wood, he can hold.
Easton Wood's a younger player. Their back line is quite strong. They've got younger key position players. Fletcher Roberts is obviously there, young Hamling as well. So that's probably the question mark. Who's their key defenders, really? But exciting times, I agree. They're younger. They were probably ahead of schedule last year. A lot of us had, Western Bulldogs to finish down the bottom of the ladder. They came out and they were the most exciting team of the season. But I tell you what, a good season has been handed to them on a platter. The first 7 games at Etihad Stadium. And it's a big advantage for them playing at Etihad Stadium. They play a very fast ball movement style of game and they know how to play the game well. So that sets them up for a good year.
Do you think those older players are key, or will they?
I think they're still key.
Yep.
I think the rebound out of defence, I think Boyd and Murphy's interception along with Easton Wood, absolutely key to the way they played.
Yeah.
I think the key was Luke Beveridge. I mean, I don't think we can get away from the fact that this side outperformed based on young talent that we didn't know coming through, but also on a style of play that we hadn't seen implemented as well, as quickly as under Luke Beveridge.
Can I give you the 23 and under list and see whether you rate these guys or not? Because the names are frightening. Not for this year coming, but for the 2 or 3 years down the track. Liberatore, Dalhouse, Stringer, Johannesson, Wallace, McRae, Rovat, Lim Jong, Caleb Daniel, Lockie Hunter, Honeychurch, Boyd, Webb, you already mentioned. I mean, those guys, not only
batch, isn't it?
Oh, they're fantastic. It's going to give them great scope to trade going forward. They're going to get some quality picks for those guys if they can't squeeze them or satisfy them in week out in terms of AFL opportunity. But they've got a couple of bona fide stars that we just touched on there. And I want to get back to the point at the start that you made about Marcus Bontempelli, what he actually is. Let's have a look at his comparisons as a teenager to Nathan Fyfe. Now, we know what Nathan Fyfe's gone on to become. The numbers are amazingly similar, yet Bontempelli seems to have more damage in his game than what Fyfe did as a youngster. Now, we're not saying he's a lock to go on and become a Brownlow medalist, but you tend to see their DNA very early in their career and they only build from that platform. Very similar sizes, you can see there, similar disposals, fraction more contested possession to Fyfe, but clearances and impact on the scoreboard and score involvements all favour Bontempelli this stage.
Bontempelli's a little bit more surgical. The way he gets the ball, the way he uses the ball, whereas Fyfe's a wrecking ball, and that puts a bit of fear into the opposition as well around the field.
I don't think Bontempelli is still getting his just desserts for what he does with the football. He rarely makes a bad decision with the ball. His impact on the scoreboard is elite. And yet when Bontempelli first came on the scene, that's all there was. There was Bontempelli. And all of a sudden along came Jake Stringer, the package. And it's hard to know now which one you'd prefer. We were having this discussion earlier. And surprisingly, well, not surprisingly, because Jake Stringer is such a package that has he gone past Bontempelli, do you think?
Oh, I just reckon it's too hard to find forwards who do the damage. Yeah. And look, with all due respect, midfielders grow on trees, boys.
Well, we don't disagree with that, but not when they're as good as this kid. If you had to take either Stringer or Bontempelli, Brownie, who would you take?
It's a really tough one because Bontempelli can go forward and kick goals. He can break a tag that way, but Jake Stringer's a rare talent. I'd be taking him. We're going to see, I suppose, what his top end is. The pressure will come on Jake Stringer this year, Dean, because Stuart Crameri is, of course, suspended for the whole 12 months. So a lot of the focus from the opposition goes into him, but I still think Jake Stringer ahead of Bontempelli, neck and neck.
I did say upstairs if you had the choice of the two, Melbourne should choose second.
You did say that. I've gone for Bontempelli, and I think you've gone for Bontempelli, which means, Chairman,
yes,
that you've got the decisive vote.
No, I'm with the Bont.
You're with the Bont.
I'm tipping you weren't a key forward when you used to play.
Not even close. So we've seen the favoured way from the Bulldogs. They perfected that as the year went on. Is it time for Plan B? Is that what happens in the second year here?
Well, we saw Adelaide expose them out the back in the final. Everyone got a good look at that. And it's funny, it's only one game. But everybody views the biggest game of your season of this group and says, right, this was their biggest stage. They would have put all their prep, all their planning into stopping this happen, and they couldn't stop it happening. So teams have got that work into them now. They also, as I say, don't have Crameri in there. They've still got to learn a bit more about their list, and some of the older blokes had career career seasons.
But is it the system, Dermot, or was it just the forwards didn't put the pressure on? It's the same argument as we had with the West Coast Eagles.
Yeah, but can they put it on week in, week out?
Well, if they can do it 18, 20 weeks of the year, why couldn't they do it in a final? I think they just had a bad final. They didn't kick out.
The mids contributed to that as well. The mid-forward pressure was poor on the day, and it can happen. I think
there are blueprints that are handed out to beat teams, and I reckon there was a blueprint handed out to the league how to beat a youngish, in terms of goal scoring potential, a youngish Bulldogs outfit.
That's why they're really hard to place. You look at the variance in where people have got them, projecting forward on the ladder, which is a dangerous thing to be doing anyway. But they're anywhere from
but
top
we'll have
four,
a go.
We'll have a go. Anywhere from top 4 to bottom 7, bottom 6.
They got a question mark, I think, in the ruck. I think one of a number of clubs who missed out on Zach Smith. They clearly have to replace Will Minson down the track, but Will responded in the second half of the season, and he was a factor in the last part of the year. Tom Campbell, I think, is their big improver, but all of a sudden Tom Boyd has shown that he is capable of, with time, I think, playing that forward ruck role, and he's going to have to, really, to justify his spot in the team.
You talk about the loss of Stuart Crameri and what it does to that forward line. Let's have a look at the goal kickers for last year. He kicked 32 goals, so you've got to find another 25-plus goal kicker, which are hard to find.
About 15% of your yearly total.
It's a fair block, isn't it?
Yeah.
And he's a staple, and he commands a quality opponent. The domino effect of him taking the best hybrid defender for the opposition is that Tory Dixon is able to roam and be extremely damaging. He kicked 50 goals last year.
Yeah.
So not only do you lose the 30-odd goals from Crameri, you may have that 50 come down to mid-20s, maybe 30, 35.
35 still a good season.
So you've basically got to find 40 to 50 goals now. And that is the big challenge for me.
Have you all got them in the 8?
No.
I'd be surprised if they slid too far, if at all. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if they were supercharged.
I know it sounds like I'm just pandering here, but I've got them outside, but still winning a reasonable amount of games, 10, 11, maybe even 12.
I think the first 7 games that he had, they've got a pretty soft draw, got a very light travel schedule. I think that just tips them into the top 8 for me.
I'm a bit with Derm. I still think there's exposed ways to beat them. And on the back of that, and their senior core being so good last year, if they would have come off a fraction, and with the hole in that forward line now, I've got them out of the 8, but winning 10-plus games.
Just the final little point too, that 10-metre rule, excluded zone, that actually helps Bulldogs' back line as well, because they love a bit of space around Johannesson, Murphy and the likes, love a little bit of room to run off and wheel out, so that'll help them as well.
So the final question, picking up a thread from you, Jared, and this assumes best case scenario. If they're there in September, will Tom Boyd be at full forward come the finals if they're there?
I don't think so. I don't think Tom is ready for that role just at the present time. He was impressive yesterday, a couple of days ago against the Demons. But he still looks to me like a kid that needs another 20 to 30 games in him.
Yeah.
Tom will be arguably the dominant forward in years to come, but he's not ready to be a dominant forward in the 2016 final series.
Tom will be there if they do make finals. I expect him to kick 30-plus goals. He did play 14 games, remember, last year, and I think there'll be some natural development. He plays a full season.
Averaged 96 points last year without any influence from Boyd, really, let's be honest. He might have played the games, but he hardly hit the scoreboard. So I don't think they'll make drastic change. And they've got to wait until he actually commands selection.
You've got to remember Crameri's out, though. There's that spot there, isn't there, for a key forward?
He doesn't play like Crameri, though, does he?
No, different, but there is that taller spot, yeah. It's a good point.
That's the Bulldogs, who could very well improve and miss out on what you've laid before us. St Kilda next in the season preview at the round table. It's the 3rd year under Alan Richardson, so there are some worthwhile measurements to be made about the Saints in 2016. David, run the rule over them from the accounting perspective.
Well, the last 3 years are important, aren't they? 5, 4 and 6 wins. Their list is ranked 16th, and there's a real query on whether there's enough star factor there. We just talked about the Bulldogs. Do they have that sort of quality coming through? They've got the easiest draw in the competition this year because they're ladder position and whatnot. The ends include Freeman and Carlisle, who we're not sure, though. We know they'll get nothing out of Carlisle this year, and Freeman's already been injury impacted again, and they didn't really lose a lot. And their ageing stars still managed to have a fantastic seasons for them and still playing some great level football. He's about Montagna, Rewalt, Fisher, Dempster, these sorts of guys. They didn't really lose a lot. They may at the end of this year, but right now they're well placed.
So, Derm, is this the year whether we learn whether it's on track? Can you do that in the third year?
Yeah, it's on track, but this is a real slow build, and the reason I say that because they're overburdened with wonderful soldiers. Now that's a great problem to have, as long as you've got stars in there. I think they've got two older brigade stars. One's Revolt, and we don't know how much really he might age over the summer months each year. Now we also have Stevens, who is a bona fide star. They're their two older. They've got some really wonderful servants still, and I think Montagna's slipped down into the good servant range now. They don't have star talent coming through. Billings has star quality. Loney might have star quality. Josh Bruce plays meeting the footy as a key forward with star quality, but the real star key forwards like this bloke and Carey could do that, and when the ball went over their head, you had to watch them as much. You don't have to watch Brucey as much.
He's still getting better though, isn't he? He's only 23.
He's a ripping kid,
kicked
mate.
50 goals last year.
He is one of the great competitive key position youngsters in the comp.
They invested heavily in Paddy McCartan and Hugh Goddard. Not a lot of exposed form. How will you assess their development early?
McCartan, I'd give him to someone like Bowden Babachek and say, give him a physical edge. Because I don't see a physical edge in the boy. He can obviously play, but I don't see that physical edge that's going to say, whoa, well, you need a specific matchup for him. Because at the moment, just pick your centre-half back and play him on him. Goddard is a great big kid who can play. He just needs time in the seat.
I think we'll see Goddard play most of the year. I would have thought he had a pretty good finish to last season. So he looks like he's certainly capable of playing senior footy, and a lot of senior footy this year as a key defender. McCartan's the interesting one, isn't he? And you'd like to see him playing now while Rewalt's still playing, almost to mentor him, even though Rewalt may be up the field a little bit. But hopefully they can get a lot of footy into McCartan. It'll be a disappointing season for St Kilda if McCartan doesn't walk away and he hasn't played 15 plus games.
It'll only be injury that stops that. I mean,
Exactly.
they've moved Rewald to a wing to allow Bruce and McCartan to take control of the forward 50. So that's the plan. He's injured at the moment, and maybe his body is of that. It doesn't have that hardness to it yet, and maybe we won't see the best of him for 2 or 3 years.
Might be.
But I disagree. They haven't got stars. They've got a couple of core players in Armitage and Stevens and Bruce that, if you look at their numbers, have had fantastic 24 months. Now, Stevens is a 2-time best and fairest winner. Most people don't even know who he is.
He's a star.
He's a quick player. He's a line breaker. You can just see there their improvement year on year over the last couple of seasons. So I think that those guys will drive ultimately how St Kilda go. They've relied on Montagna and Rewalt probably too much over the last 12 to 18 months.
Do you see this as a year where they just mark time rather than necessarily picking up an extra 2 to 4 wins?
Yeah, I don't think all their wins will be in the 4-point column. They just need to find some more players. I think Loney and Billings really are such crafty players, forward of centre. They may have 2 elite small forwards. They may become good midfielders. They may not. But if they just get what they're getting out of those guys, I think they'll be pretty happy with those selections.
Are they allowed to mark time in your book for a year?
Yeah, I think they can. I think they've taken the slow build. Carlisle will certainly help in 2017, as long as he prepares himself and gets his head around the fact that he's now going to be one of their star players, or is paid to be a star player. But they'd want to make some serious gains over the next 2 years.
I agree with you, and I think the ship has left the port. It's just getting past the heads. It's got a whole ocean ahead of it before it docks on the other side.
There's a fascination around Nick Rewalt and how he might be used in the twilight, and the Matthew Richardson model. Could he win a Brownlow up on the wing, for instance? How do you think they should treat their legendary player?
I think that it'd be great to see him win a Brownlow from the wing like Richo nearly did, but I think the reality will strike pretty early in the piece. You're there to win games. they'll win more games if Riewoldt is within striking distance of the goal rather than adding a bit of bulk and speed to their midfield.
What they really want, though?
But look, if you're looking for high draft picks, the answer to that is no. But it doesn't. I think if they are going to in the position to win a game, Riewoldt to me makes them more dangerous, and particularly in the first half of the season, you're not looking at the draft picks. You're looking at trying to make yourself competitive, build your membership base, get some excitement around the place.
Absolutely, and there's absolute logic in that. But at the end of the year, would you like to see Josh Bruce, and let's use goals as the terminology because it's not always the yardstick, but let's say Josh Bruce is sitting on 35 goals, Riewoldt's on 40 goals, and McCartan's on 20 goals? Or would you prefer Riewoldt to have a wonderful game a year on the wing, Josh Bruce 50 goals and McCartan 35? Well, what's better for the Saints long term?
Well, if McCartan was ready to kick 35,
I'm using this as an example.
But I don't think he is. I don't think there's any
Okay, well, use Bruce as an example. Do you want to see him with 15 more goals for the year?
Well, I think that they're better placed with multiple targets than just having reliance on Josh Bruce, who will pretty comfortably, I think,
You're
be smothered.
dodging my question, eh?
Your Honour.
No, I'd rather have Riewoldt in the middle.
In the
Sorry, in the forward
Yes,
line.
I thought he'd jump ship there.
We still see Riewoldt be a major contributor to the scoreboard. He plays a fair bit of the time forward. He will work up naturally, work up to the wing, work up the half-back flank. Sometimes I think he gets too high, but they'll still want McCartan to be on the third defender. So Riewoldt and Bruce taking the main two. Obviously McCartan giving him maybe a softer ride in, I suppose, in terms of
as
his
a bona
opponent.
fide wingman.
He is playing as a bona fide winger.
So they won't get that luxury of the third defender.
I think he plays a bit more in the forward line once the regular season starts.
Could he play the
Who
goods
knows?
role, wing, and then when he gets a favourable matchup, hey, I'm drifting down for 6 or 7 minutes?
Yeah, I think it will be a bit horse for courses. Like Kingy said, he's played a lot on the wing. I think you weigh it up each week, and you obviously weigh up his body. How's he handling the work rate up the field?
The reality is, even when he's playing at full forward, he's spending half the time on the wing.
Yes.
He's lighter. He's lost, 3, 4, 5 kilos.
Yeah.
So he anticipates he'll be running more. Which you can imagine that. He's the best running key forward.
I think we want to see, overall, for me, St Kilda, we want to see, they scrap really well. I see them scrapping really well. I think we want to see them improve their ball movement this year and just be a little bit cleaner all the way
So
through.
a final question, to meet par in your mind, give me a team that they have to finish above. Avoid the cowards way of Essendon and Carlton. Who do they have to finish above to meet par?
I think they need to more win 8 games. That's a par. If you're on the
put them ahead of a
improve,
few.
that's 2 more wins than last year. So I think the bottom few sides will be fairly predictable. If they're not in front of Brisbane, I think they would think they've failed.
To Brisbane.
I think if you're going by that yardstick, they'd want to beat teams like Melbourne twice, the Suns, those teams that are around them on the ladder, and maybe really take it to one of the teams that finishes legitimately in the top 8.
They want to aim to be the best of the bottom 6. And the teams they're directly competing against there are Melbourne and the Gold Coast Suns, I believe.
Yeah, there has to be a team name in this answer, David.
Team name. Well, to answer your question, they were 1 and 9 versus top 8 teams last year, so that'll be a rarity. I'll give you a few teams. They'll be above the Suns. They'll be above Essendon and Carlton, as you said. I think they'll be above Brisbane. And if they were to get above Melbourne, I think that'd be a significant scalp.
Yeah.
All right, that's St Kilda. GWS, who caught many an eye at the table during the pre-season, they're up for dissection next.
Does well, ducks out of it, spins around, kicks to a goal. Oh, that's a monster. Goes for home. Oh, unbelievable. The Giants have captured the Premiers at home. Ward, brilliant. Oh, don't call him Devon. Call him Heaven Smith.
They did catch the eye at times last year, but they certainly did during the NAB Challenge, and I think they might have caused a reassessment or two across the past month. So the Giants, Kingy, and the long-term trend is obviously the key here as to what it can build to now.
Yeah, the wins have been significant, haven't they? The big jump from 1 to 6 to 11 over the last 3 seasons, and most people have got them north of 11 as we sit here now. Their list is ranked 11th over the last 2 seasons. but mostly because we haven't seen a lot of these
It's a false
kids.
guide,
It's a
isn't it?
false guide. It'll be 11th tracking to about top 4 if they do what we think they're going to do this year. They've got a good draw at 7th, which is around their mark. One big in, Stevie J again, in terms of leadership and in terms of impact on the scoreboard. A few outs, but they're probably going to always have a few quality outs, aren't they, over the next few years because of their ability to trade. It's a matter of what they get for those outs. But Treloar, Hampton and Bug are probably the 3 most notable.
So, has their time come, Jared?
I think it has, Jared, and I was of that view at the end of last year. I thought if they don't make the finals this year, it would be considered a major failure. But I must say that what I've seen in the NAB Challenge, and I take a bit of good form in the NAB Challenge, added to expected maturation of some really talented players, I think that they're potentially the side that really does charge up the ladder. And if they don't have a significant say on the makeup of the finals, I think they'd be really looking to see what's gone wrong in this footy club. They've got too much talent in that midfield not to give their forward line, of which there's multiple opportunities, Dermot, to kick a winning score. But what's really impressed me has been some of the talent off that half back line and their capacity to run and deliver the ball out of defence has been getting better and better each year, and it just seems that the maturity of the group it's there for everyone to see, I think, in the first part of the year.
The most devastating style of player in this current era is the bloke who tucks it under the arm, catch me if you can, because we play such a packed game of football now. You get a bloke who can carry it a bit and clear the congestions on the other side, and that's Dylan Shield. He was devastated. We talk about Mumford, and they really struggled after Mumford went down. But when Shield went out, they were no hope because they couldn't carry the congestion out the other side. But they also have a lot of faith in Patfull and Davis. They'll be bringing on young Aidan Core, but you wouldn't want one of those two to fall over because that's the area. They've got some attacking backmen, but the area that they might struggle is to stand up against the big pigs in the opposition who just say, hey, kick it on the head, I'll belt these blokes up.
Aidan Core looks like he's got tremendous upside. Is he going to be a genuine star, or is he more just a good quality stopper over his career, Derm?
No, he's a bit better than that.
Yeah,
he's a lot better than that.
Just the scoring side of things and taking on the premiership quadrants, or however you want to divide this up, as the guide over more than a decade now. And they've been on the climb, and to get to 100 points is if you have them pegged as to where they were last year. And look, the Bulldogs are just slightly ahead of them, a team we've considered tonight, and then our others aren't really factoring there.
Well, their only real problem is they've got to find 2.5 to 3 goals a week. And from what we've seen through just natural growth of these young players becoming senior bodies and senior players, that will come. I'm not sure what the gap will be or where there will be a gap. I'd expect there wouldn't be a gap seeing what we've seen through the pre-season. We're talking about their ball movement. Their pinball, handball, from taking the game from congestion into space is better than any other team in the competition. It's unrivalled what we're seeing. And I know it's pre-season and you can draw into what you like. We saw it for patches of 3 to 4 weeks last year. And I think everyone talked about the impact of Mumford. I don't necessarily think it's the impact of Mumford anymore. The ability to break into space and then play an uncontested game. That's why they're elite draft picks, because they can play uncontested.
What I've
football.
seen in the pre-season, there was slightly difference in their attacking movement. Last year was the Orange Tsunami. Just link up handball, and they've still got that. This year they are pinpoint passing as well as handballing. They've got both avenues.
You can see there they're rated 5th in the competition last season for ball movement, so it didn't necessarily go on the scoreboard last year. But with another pre-season and a little bit more maturity, that will become wins.
I think Wilson learning off the best in the business in Heath Shaw. Heath Shaw's fantastic. Just need that support. I think Wilson will take the next step there, no doubt. So I think Mumford, you're right about Mumford, Kingy, that their ball movement has obviously improved and the way they break out of stoppages. But what Mumford brings is that presence. He's almost their protector there. He gives them that real presence. He's intimidating to all the opposition players, and I think that's where their greatest strength lies when Mumford is out there.
Dermot, can you tell me how they're going to set up their forward line? Because this to me is their great challenge. With the emergence of Rory Lobb, you've got Stewart and you've got Jeremy Cameron and you've got the General Patton there, and Tomlinson, all trying to fit into the one side. And I'm just not sure how that works.
You could end up just being your own worst enemy and getting too big, too top heavy, and that's taking the unfortunate situation with Cam McCarthy out of the equation as well. They have an overabundance of tall forward riches. So Patton, Cameron, Stewart, Tomlinson you haven't mentioned, is a 16 beeper as well, who can legitimately play as a centre-half forward. You'd find that Lobb at 205, 206 centimetres has got a lot stronger over the pre-season. He can mark the ball very high off the ground, yet he's got a very good tank, can give relief in the ruck, he'll play deep. And obviously Cameron, being 6'5", is still just a mobile forward. You've got to give the heat to someone else, be it Stewart or Patton, to actually come up and be the plonk it on my head and I'll take the mark.
Cameron will find himself in a foot race back to goal against Stevie J most weeks. Jared,
Not many people have ever won that.
Not many have won that. He'll be going well, Stevie, to get on the end of a few of those. But Stevie J was one of only 3 players last year to average more than 20 disposals a game and kick more than a goal. You know, Ablett and Delidio were the other 2. So if he can just bring some of that form, along with the intelligence that he provides and the leadership that he'll give, I think their forward line should function quite well.
But he has one thing. He can't, as you say, wave the bus and let 17 teammates fight the fight against 18 opponents, because he wants to coach these blokes somewhere down the track. He's still got to commit to the team rules. Otherwise, when he
Cameron know that, doesn't he?
Otherwise, when he says, do what I asked, I'll say, hang on, you did.
You don't. Hey, Brownie, have you still got Patton developing into a dominant forward one day with the Giants?
Yeah, I do. He's obviously had a lot of problems. Had the knee reconstructions, so it's going to take time. I think most key forwards take 3 or 4 years to fully develop. Outside every now and again you get the guns that just burst onto the scene like a Jeremy Cameron. I think Jeremy Cameron's almost put pressure on Patton now. We need to be patient with Patton. He'll get his confidence back this year, providing he doesn't get injured. He's a great focal point, I believe.
So who is in the forward line? Who's going to miss out? You can't play them all.
That's the way you go. Patton runs straight lines up, doesn't get used, comes back and goes again. Cameron will come up and then try and swing around. Tomlinson will hit the wings. Stewart's got an explosive leap. So they all actually...
And Lobb?
Yeah, and Lobb just outreaches everyone. They've all actually got something different.
They're going to be a forward line than Geelong.
How many are going to play there?
Just a final question here is nearest the pin. How many goals will Stevie J kick?
35?
Yeah, I was thinking 35.
Well, you're going to have to vary just a little bit. You can't be on the same dot.
I think Stevie J kicks 40.
It's a really ordinary question, Jared. I'm going to go with 50.
50?
Yeah. I think that he'll stay at home more. He spent a lot of time in the midfield down Geelong, getting a lot of ball. He'll get less ball, but he'll kick more goals.
All right, you're the high end of nearest the pin, you're the low end as it
So
turns out.
you say that Jeremy Cameron's going down?
Yes.
Okay.
He's going to be
He's
losing
he's losing the race.
Outsmarted.
The Giants. Okay, so 2 to go tonight, and this will require a bit of moving of par. What's par for Carlton and for the Brisbane Lions?
Walker's got a big run and marks it.
It's Carlton who win at the MCG.
Carlton is calling it the journey. It's likely to be the long, long roads. The balance sheet, David King on the Blues.
Been on the slide the last few years, Jared. 14, 11, 11, 7 and 4 wins last year.
And thus we find ourselves here.
And it finally hit home as to where they're actually at and what was actually likely to happen going forward. List is rated 17th. It is a rebuild. We know that it would have been 18th, barring what's happened at Essendon. 13th rated draw, which is probably irrelevant for them this year. So they've got their challenges, but I think they've finally assessed where they're at and have gone back to the draft. And that's the inclusions. You can see the draft stars that have come on board there. I know Jared's keen to talk about those guys. And I think Kerridge is a really canny selection. He's a good
pick.
Good depth
pick.
midfielder.
Yeah.
There's probably a fraction better than that, can hit the scoreboard. They've allowed
Good pre-season, King. Good pre-season.
They've allowed some players to move on. They've obviously traded heavily. Yaron Bell, Carazzo's moved on, retired. Henderson and Menzel, they allowed that movement as well to get some quality picks in. So a lot out, and back to the drawing board on the way in.
So what will you use, Jared, to assess them along the way?
I think we're going to probably use just the way the club behaves when the inevitable pressure comes to bear, when they've lost 6 in a row, when things aren't working well for them, whether or not there's any mumblings and rumblings about the inexperienced coach, the fact that he didn't play AFL football. To me, that's the way I think we're going to judge Carlton. They're going to be in for some really good highs, but not many of them. But they're going to be in for some trouncings as well. But you're going to look at this club and say, OK, can they accept their medicine? It's been a long time of denial, but the medicine is going to be tough to swallow for a period of time. Might be 3, might be 5 years. But can they stay the journey? They're calling it the journey. Can they stay the path?
Trail of tears.
It's going to be some tears along the way, but that's okay. You learn from tears. But they've got kids like Wiedering. Everyone knows Wiedering's going to be a very good player. He's had a good start. Curnow as well.
He's had better than a good start.
He's a terrific start.
He's had an amazing start.
Harry Mackay is an interesting one. He is a speculator. His junior numbers don't tell us he's going to be a star. His size and his body shape suggest he could be a star, but he's going to be one that's a challenge for them. And Jack Silvani, well, it's just good to have a Silvani back at Carlton.
So they've just got to build a list of stars. You mentioned Curnow, Wiedering, we know that, Mackay. If you're a Carlton supporter, you're going along, you're hoping to win the halftime raffle. I mean, that's all you're going to get out of it. But what you want to do is see your list built with real talent and real stars. Your fun's going to happen a few years away.
What about the way they play?
The way they play, no doubt, to be influenced by Hawthorn. Brendan Bolton, we saw, was a long-time assistant coach there. He coached Hawthorn for 5 games. I think we've already seen that in the pre-season. They've been able to shift the ball better, move the ball laterally, and I think some of their ball movement against Sydney in the last NAB Challenge games was quite impressive. I think defensively they are a lot better organised now, albeit a young side. It's going to take time. It's going to take years for that, but you can already see Bolton's had a fair influence, especially the way they move the football.
The issue for Carlton is these kids who they're bringing in, you can actually, in your mind's eye, visualise them playing on grand final day someday. But to do that, you almost need the leapfrog of the above-era players to be there with them. So if Wiedering plays in a grand final, Mackay plays in a grand final, young Silvani plays in a grand final, do the blokes who are there now, Murphy and Gibbs, will they hang on that long? So you've got to get the collision of both eras still, the A-graders of both eras still playing good footy at the same time. And I don't know if Murphy and Gibbs can hang on that long. So they just need as much star talent as they can bring into the place.
And as well as drafting, you've got to get something for it. You've got to find the little nuggets of gold elsewhere, and they have recycled pretty heavily.
They've recycled a lot. They've actually got the competition's most recycled players from other clubs. 17, which is 5 more than the next club, Melbourne and St Kilda. That's a lot. 17 on your list.
Well, you're not expected to get too many of those right. Recycled players have a history of, if you go collectively, you're not going to get more than about 20% right. But they've got a good start with Kerridge. Kerridge looks a good one, and the GWS are an extraordinarily different set of circumstances, so they might pluck a couple there as well.
The reason why they've had to do that, though, is that they had a void in the draft from 08 to 2012 when they got their first pick wrong. There's players like Bootsma and Watson. You name them, we don't need to go back onto that, but they've created a hole in their list where they've got to get some senior core players in who they know are not going to be stars. But what they have got in the midfield is a guy called Patrick Cripps, who's going to be an amazing talent. He is just a ball-winning machine. Let's have a look at the comparison of him versus the guns of the competition, players like Fife, Dangerfield, Penderbury and Selwood. And his numbers are amazing at his age, 23, in the first 23 games only. So it is a small sample, but like I keep saying, what you see early generally stamps their DNA. Only player over 20 disposals of the lot of those guys, and it's all contested footy. It's all clearances, and they're the ones you can build around them.
He did something in the heat the other night. It won't sound much here, but he stood up in a tackle, cleared his arms over the tackler going around his waist and shot a handball sideways. Now, the composure to do that was Luke Hodge-like.
Hands are very good, aren't they?
That said more to me than 20 per game.
He's a big midfielder. He's 193 centimetres. He's got that ability to stand up tall, doesn't he, and have the clean hands to offload to your Murphys, to your Gibbs, those supporting guys.
From a 50-50 break-even situation, he can get the ball into a teammate's hands. That is, all their way.
One of their standouts over the summer has been Blaine Boakhurst. He was their first pick last year.
Good the other night.
A late developer, and a lot of question marks on him because he had a fairly average year last year, to say the least. But he's been a star, and topped 100 rankings points, champion data rankings points for the first time. It was a significant outing against the Swans.
And Cruiser has probably had the best pre-season. I know he hasn't played the volume of football they wanted, and in a lot of ways he's under-delivered on what they've paid for him, both a draft pick initially and what they've actually financially given him over the last few years. It hasn't married up to what he's delivered, but right now you can see that 2016 is going to be a big year.
Just to get in his corner, sorry for a second, he was offered a mega deal to leave that club, and he stayed for half of the deal he was offered. So it works out even. He's a very good club man, Cruiser.
Do you see him playing?
I don't doubt he's a good club man, but they need him to deliver as a
No
player.
question on that.
Yeah.
So
Do you see him playing more in the ruck?
Yep.
A lot more in the ruck than forward.
Yep.
Yeah.
the wins will be scarce, and you can all have the same number here if you choose. But what's an acceptable number of wins?
Well, given there's a couple of sides in and around them, you'd expect them to win. 6 would be a good year.
6?
Would be a good year.
That'd be a great year. The model of these things is sort of 2, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, I think that if they play Essendon twice, they've got Brisbane they could knock off a couple of times. It'll be somewhere between 4 and 6.
2 wins,
2.
1 every 3 months, and show me some wizardry from the real talented kids. So we all go, can't wait for them all to come together like that.
Browning?
I think Carlton 4 wins, but I think they make it 2 in a row for the Rising Star with Jacob Weitering.
I'm a bit with Jared. I think they'll jump. I think they'll surprise a few. The new style. They were playing a brand of football last year that was gone. It's been extinct for quite some time. 4 wins last year. I'm jumping up around the 6 or 7.
Come on, sellers.
Is he here?
Maybe,
Or is he?
maybe better than expected.
Yeah.
Now Brisbane. Can the Lions get out of Struggle Town?
Robinson, a huge fly. What about the follow? Makes a bounce. Now a second, a third. Runs to 50. Long ball. Driving ball. Outstanding from Jed Adcock.
We'll get Brownie to set expectations in a minute, but run us through the balance sheet here, Ken.
Had a great balance sheet, a little all over the place. 4, 10, 10, 7 and 4 wins last year. They got a 17th rated list, so the list is well down, and the 8th hardest draw. So again, that's out of whack and doesn't read well for wins and losses this year. They've drafted a couple of stars, most notably the forward Shaky, who we'll talk about in a moment, and put some midfield depth in there with Bastanak and Bell. So Adcock, Redden, Aish and Leuenberger are probably a higher quality of player that you'd like to see exit. You wouldn't like to see that. They're ready-made AFL players. You wouldn't like to see that volume leaving year on year, which has been the case over the last few years. But, not sure where the Lions sit.
So how are you going to sort them out, Brownie?
Well, I think they're probably around about the St Kilda mark, maybe a little bit less than that, but they're very reliant on their midfield. Okay, on paper they've got a very good midfield. They've strengthened it up again, especially their contested footy, which has been the real problem for the Brisbane Lions the last 5 years. So they have clearly been the worst contested football side in the competition. They've brought in Bell, they've brought in Bastanak to help bolster that. Hopefully get Dane Beams and Tom Rockcliffe. Don't have injury interrupted years like they did last year. Obviously Zorko rolls through there. Stephen Martin's arguably the most important ruckman, or certainly the most dominant all-round ruckman in the competition, and they need to score a lot of their goals from there. I expect to see Rockcliffe play forward a lot more this year. He's very good in a one-on-one contest but hasn't been spending enough time forward, but youngest team in the competition, by quite a way, so it's going to be very difficult to progress much from last year, but finally I believe they've got the pieces in the puzzle now. They've got a young key position group that look good, but good in a few years' time.
Is this the heavy education phase, Derm?
Oh, yeah. I agree with Brownie. They've got some really gifted key position type players. They're just babies. It's all the fortunes of this team will all be reliant on Beams and Rockcliffe and how they lead this team. I think Tom Bell's a good inclusion for them. They just need bulls. They just need a couple of blokes to actually go in and bang up a few of the opposition, and then when the young players in Brisbane see that, some of those senior blokes are banging around the opposition, they know that the opposition are going to be chasing them.
Have a look at that. Put that in context. And I'll ask you the question, Jared. Why is their contested possession battle versus their opponent so poor? Look at the last 5 years. You can see it there. It's quite obvious there. -10, -15, -6, -7, -10. Basically, giving the opportunity for the opposition to start with the football in a game of tennis, allowing them to serve 10 more times in your game.
Well, contested ball's made up of 6 factors: 30% hard ball get, 30% loose ball get. I think they're pretty good at genuine hardball get, but it's all those other elements that they struggle with.
It's on the spread.
It's on the spread. They don't get to outnumber the competition. So just by saying go in
system,
harder for the ball, I'm not sure it's system at all. I think a lot of that other element is a talent-based issue, and I think they're bolstering their talent. It's only going to come in around the margins. But the fact that Beans is all of a sudden out for half a year, Brownie, the question mark on him doesn't look great. Drags whatever plus they have with Bell coming into the side, Walker coming in up forward. It certainly minimises that. But you've got some key forwards there. You've got plenty of talent. There should be more excitement around the Lions. And to me, it's the club that's under the microscope.
Yeah.
They've got to arrest this slide of this is a club you don't want to be at.
Yeah.
And to me, that's the major factor for Brisbane. The CEO's under the pressure. The captain's under pressure. The board is under pressure. They've got to get some stability around this club that says, like when you were there, this is a great place to play your football and I want to stay here.
That's right, and there's been a major upheaval of the list. 34 changes in 3 years. It's virtually a whole new list.
One addition, Craig Lambert has got to help. He's good mates with the coach. He's a great people's person. He's done a great job at GWS. They've got to fill that hole, and he'll be a significant factor in it.
He can't.
No, not by himself. It's a step by step.
Yeah.
You've got to get the first step organised before you get to the second.
Okay, the outside perception in the football world is Brisbane are a basket case. Where are they going? How did Justin Lepage get contract renewal? Brisbane are on the right track. Certainly internally, they've got strong football people in key positions there. Lee Matthews is virtually the boss up there. Football director Greg Swan, a good football person, CEO. You've had the Lamberts come back to really help with that culture and player retention, which is really important. And they've started to get some free agents into the joint, and younger players have re-signed. Younger players are starting to re-sign now. Brisbane had a poor year 2 or 3 years ago when they lost 5 draft picks in that 1 year. But things are changing internally. It's just going to take a while for that external perception to change.
Sam May sign?
Sam Mays is close to signing. Yeah, so there's some real positivity within the 4 walls of the Brisbane Lions.
So Carlton fans going to have a lot of fun watching Wiedering.
Yeah.
Are the Lions fans, the most important thing is that Shackie's there in 5 years' time.
Exactly.
Will they get anything this year, or does the difference between being a forward and a defender means steady on?
I think you're right. It's a totally different situation. I've heard you talk about this lots of times, Dermot. First year as a forward, expect nothing.
Yeah.
Have a look at some of the comparisons to some of the guns in the competition or some of the first round draft picks in years gone by, and you can see what they delivered in the first year, very low return. So anything they get this year is a bonus.
Yeah. They're riding co-pilot and they never get to put their hands on the wheel.
Yeah.
They're just out there watching how it's done.
And Josh Walker's a good pickup though. He's in the shadow of Tom Hawkins at Geelong. Brisbane have got him up there now to be the #1 target forward. He's a big body. Take the pressure off these young forwards in Shackie, Freeman, Close.
He's turned it on its head a couple of times, Josh Walker. A few night games. I remember he took on Hawthorn on a Saturday night game, and up until halfway through the third quarter, he'd taken some big pack marks, and that's a big stage. So now that he's the man, he's got a shot at it. But they're a junior outfit. We can't expect too much from them.
So a closing question on the Lions is, who should be winning Brisbane's best and fairest? Ooh. Who's the player who they should be hanging their hat on as being their absolute best as this year unfolds?
Well, the skipper is a ball mate that he's going to play forward. Zorko, to me, is a damaging player, and for the life of me, I'm not sure what was going between his ears when he had a dash at Phil Davis, which costs him. But Zorko, for mine, if he wins it, they're on the way.
Oh, no, Rockcliffe is by far the best player in their team.
I'd like to see Daniel Rich step up. He had that year last year coming back from the knee, Rico. I think now time for Daniel Rich to go and win a best and fairest.
Well, history shows that they'll give it to 5 or 6 people.
Yes, very good. I wondered if anyone would
3
do that.
that are coming out of contract just to hang on to them.
Oh, enough of that. Come on.
And 3 that deserve it. I think it'll be the captain. The captain needs to stand himself.
Okay, Jared Brownie, you're dismissed. Well done. getting us to the halfway point of the season previews. You stay on board. Jason Dunstall, Cameron Mooney and Brad Johnson in for the next 2 nights. Tomorrow, it's Collingwood, Geelong, Sydney and Fremantle. See you then.
This has been a Fox Footy production, part of the Fox Sports Network.